Welcome to the premiere of Community Voices. I'm Richard Burke, your host. This program will showcase people who are active in the community and trying to make a difference. On today's show, we will have footage from the Libertarian Party of Oregon's nominating convention that was held on October 24, 1999, in Portland, Oregon. Later in the show, Mitch Shults, Libertarian Party candidate for state treasurer, will be interviewed.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that everybody knows that we're very grateful for you all taking the time and the trouble to come down here and participate in probably the most democratic and most libertarian function that we do perform, and that's putting candidates on the ballot for people to vote for. As you've followed the Oregon Libertarian magazine for the last few months, you've read a lot of articles on what kind of candidates we should put on the ballot, paper candidates or low-profile candidates or minimalist candidates or serious candidates, and various opinions thereof. I would like to take this time to let people aware of the fact that we have another nominating convention coming up in March. And at this nominating convention, I would like only people who are really seriously interested in running a full-blown candidacy and want to devote some time and some energy to their candidacy to step forward at this time. Because if we have people filling up paper candidates at this time, it might preclude a really viable, hardworking candidate from declaring later. And we'd like to preclude that if possible. There's always time for these people to step forward at a later time, and then we can fill those vacancies later. So that's just my own personal opinion. Of course, you're going to do what you want, but I just think that's important to make that notice.
Am I the only one?
We will now see the candidates that the Libertarian Party of Oregon nominated at the convention. Tom Cox is the candidate for Attorney General.
First of many promises to come. I stand before you to seek your nomination for the office of Attorney General of the state of Oregon. As your candidate, I will champion individual rights against those who would infringe on them, whether they be individual criminals or public officials. First off, I think that ballot initiative titles are something that all of us should be keyed up on for the coming election. There have been, of course, the Secretary of State offers the titles for the ballot initiatives, but then it would be the Attorney General has to defend them in court. And the Attorney General spends a lot of money defending some of these titles in court because some of the titles are pretty awful. Often, whoever Secretary of State has a strong opinion about a particular initiative and desiring either to help it or hinder it will give it a title that is perhaps not a good fit, but is intended to sway voters for and against it. That is a misuse of government power. And it is a further misuse of government power to tax you to pay lawyers to defend that kind of bad titling. As Attorney General, I have very little control over the titling, but I will work very closely with the Secretary of State to try and find a process of choosing titles that are acceptable to the people who are both for and against it. A title that is descriptive and that informs voters is really what we should be seeking here. Other things that the Attorney General should do, I believe, include looking out for the possibility of official corruption in Salem. The Attorney General's office under my leadership will have a continuing task force seeking out evidence of official corruption, investigating it, and prosecuting it. The Attorney General is responsible for representing the interests of the state in any civil action in which it may have an interest. That includes things like defending appeals of civil forfeiture. I am against civil forfeiture of private assets when there is no criminal charge. You're going to make me run long here if you keep interrupting me with applause. And as Attorney General, I would see that my office would not show up to defend an asset forfeiture appeal that was made at the state level if there were no criminal charges filed. I believe that asset forfeiture as it's practiced throughout the country is a violation not only of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution of the United States, but in Oregon it is often done in contravention of Article 1, Sections 9, 18, and 25 of the Oregon Constitution. And I won't stand for it. There are other issues we can get into at great length, and I hope to do that in coming months, informing you of the positions I'll be running on, soliciting you for your support in time, effort, and money. But for now, I want to ask you to please vote for me to be your nominee for this office, and please vote for me in the general election. Thank you.
Ed Pohl is the candidate for Secretary of State. He's currently
Hi, my name is Ed Pohl. Some of you have heard some of this speech before. Some of you have heard some of this speech before, so I'll try to make it a little bit different. I've been a registered libertarian since 1976. In that year, I became chair of the Libertarian Party of South Florida, which I was the chair for 2 years. I ran once for city council in a city called Deerfield Beach, and I received 19% of the vote in a nonpartisan election, but I did use small L libertarian in my campaign literature. I've been fairly inactive in the 1980s and 90s because classically I burned out, like everybody seems to do in the Libertarian Party when they first joined, except for presidential campaign initiative drives. In Florida, where I was at the time, you had to petition for minor party candidates every year or every presidential election. And I think you had to get 50, 60,000 petitions signed to get on the ballot, so it was quite difficult to do, but we accomplished it every year. Some brief personal background. I graduated from Florida State University with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering Science. Joined IBM in 1968 at Cape Kennedy and was a member of the Apollo 11 launch team, one thing I'm fairly proud of. And now I retired from IBM, took one of their kind offers, and am now with Intel in Hillsborough since January of 1996. I was sort of roped into this by Jerome Cole, who called me up and asked me if I would be a paper candidate. I didn't think that I didn't want to be a paper candidate. If I was going to be a candidate, I wanted to be an active candidate. So since I don't have anything else to do for the next year, I decided I'd be an active candidate. I think we have 5 goals, or I will have 5 goals for this election. First and primary goal is to get 1% of the vote, and that would maintain the ballot status for the Libertarian Party of Oregon for the 2002 elections for governor. Second goal would be to be a spoiler. I'd like to receive enough votes, or enough percentage of the votes, to be the difference between Democratic and Republican candidates. I like to be a spoiler. Third goal, and this may be actually about the same number of votes to get this, is I would like to receive more than the rest of the minor parties combined. Last election, there were quite a few minor parties. I believe there may be only one more minor party on the ballot in this election. So I frankly don't think that that's too much of a problem. Fourth goal, this is a little bit more ambitious, is to receive 15% of the vote. That fulfills one of the requirements to achieve major party ballot status in Oregon. I believe another requirement is that we have a certain number of registered voters. But I can't go out and register so many times, so I can only do that once. Fifth goal would be to win. That would be scary. That would be scary, but I'm prepared to win. I think we have a number of pre-packaged issues for the Secretary of State. They're national issues. At least one of them is a national issue that everybody's talking about. And I think that the Secretary of State in this election is in a unique position that has a pre-packaged, nationally recognized campaign issue. And that is, of course, campaign finance reform. My position is you should be able to collect as much money as you can and spend as much money as you can. I had certain reservations, or not reservations, but I would not object to certain minimal reporting requirements, but limitations on spending, and especially limitations on the amount that people can give you, is just a trick and a fraud by the major parties to keep themselves in power. Another issue we have is initiative reform. Oregon is famous for their citizens' initiatives. I believe it's called the Oregon Initiative Principle. And many of the states that now have initiatives on their initiative capability in their constitutions formed or got their idea from Oregon. I think we should keep this an active, viable, dynamic process. I think it should be fair. I agree with Tom that the titling of the ballot should be informative only. It should not direct or defraud the voter into voting one way or the other, and I would certainly do that. I've been a professional engineer for all of my life, and that requires a certain amount of objectivity. And I think I could bring a great amount of objectivity to that process. Another issue might be redistricting. That is coming up. The Secretary of State that is elected in the year 2000 will have the responsibility for redistricting or influencing the redistricting for the 2002 elections. I would, again, bring objectivity to that process. I would resist and oppose gerrymandering of districts to maintain party enclaves. If a candidate or if an office holder happens to be hurt by a redistricting, a logical redistricting of his district, too bad, even if he is a libertarian, by the way. So I would again bring an objective viewpoint, fair viewpoint to a redistricting issue. I promise to run a campaign based on libertarian principles. I will not compromise those principles. However, I will run also a practical campaign. I think that you need to couch libertarian issues in practical terms based in common sense, so that people who are not familiar with the political process and political issues can understand them. Most people shouldn't even have to be as aware of the political processes as we are here to make a good, fair, honest, logical determination on a ballot issue or on a candidate. They shouldn't have to do this. And most of them don't. If you become as I've heard a number of years ago, a libertarian macho flash and shock people, they turn off, they don't listen to you. So while you can run, I believe that's possible. It's a very hard thing to do sometimes, but I believe it is possible to run a principled campaign, but based on practicality and common sense. I'd like to run 3, maybe 4 trips around Oregon, all throughout the whole state, and I will try to do that over the next year. I'd like to visit all of the county parties that we have in that time. Do we have any questions?
Would you favor same-day registration for Oregon voters with driver's licenses or IDs?
Same-day registration for to become electors.
Yes.
I believe we have motor voter registration right now, right?
You can't register on the day of the election.
Oh, on the day of the election. I think one of the biggest problems that we have in Oregon, actually, one of the issues that's also possibly one that we have in for the Secretary of State, is fraudulent voter registration. I do not oppose a centralized database of voters to keep track of people and make sure that there's not 4 or 5 or 6 registrations for one voter. I think that there's some issues in how that's managed, especially privacy issues, but I think that it's possible to do. If you have same-day voter registration where you come in and register to vote and then vote, I don't see any way of just in practical terms of managing fraudulent voting. So I don't think that I would do that now.
Mitch Shults is the candidate for treasurer.
Shults has always been a problem for me. It's S-H-U-L-T-S, no C, no Z. I think an immigration officer in South Texas couldn't figure out how to spell it any other way. My goal is to be your nominee for state treasurer. I'm seeking the nomination because, number 1, I'm qualified. A little more on that in a moment. Number 2, because the taxpayers of Oregon need a more effective and efficient state treasury that works for their interests, not the private political interests of the treasurer, as the current treasury is largely being run. I have many ideas concerning how to improve the treasury. More on that in a moment. My campaign will focus on these ideas as a source of contrast with the opposition's paternalistic and self-serving political agenda. Unfortunately, Treasury doesn't have quite the exciting issues of the Secretary of State or the Attorney General, but I'll do the best with what I've got here. Number 3, because by running as a Libertarian, I'm confident that I can win well over the 1% of the statewide vote that is required to retain ballot access. I also intend to run an active campaign, that uses broadcast media and fundraising to attract more members to the party, members with money who want to use it to advance the cause of liberty in this state. To my qualifications. Since graduating from Rice University in '82 with a degree in economics and political science with honors, I've been employed in the computer industry in one capacity or another. I don't count the stint I spent on Capitol Hill as an unpaid congressional intern. Lewinsky just doesn't work these days. Presently, I work for Intel in a senior management capacity, marketing computer systems and technologies on a global basis. I have extensive experience with the mechanics of communication, press relations, media production, presentations, etc., and I'm confident I can run a credible campaign. I'm also confident that I can be a capable and professional state treasurer. I spent the first 8 years of my career working for Arthur Anderson as a management consultant. A lot of that accounting stuff rubbed off on me during that period. I understand large financial systems and the internet and their application to the problems of the state treasury, which, by the way, is quite messed up at the moment in that regard. I'm directly involved in investment management for Intel at the moment, selecting investments, managing a portfolio, etc. I interact on a regular basis with venture capitalists and the large management firms in New York and Silicon Valley. I also spent 3 years with a startup systems integration company in Houston, actually, that went from 3 people to 600 in those 3 years. I understand the challenges of small business, and I understand how government largely interferes with those challenges in the solution. I've been married to the same woman for 14 years. I have 2 young children and only some small skeletons in my closet. So why am I running? Number 1, I want to support the Libertarian Party of Oregon by running a credible campaign that gets the issues out, retains statewide ballot access for libertarians, and attracts new members and substantial new contributions. Second, because I believe that I can get the message to voters that there is a genuine, profoundly different alternative to the errant policies of the opposition's liberty-destroying approach. Third, because I can have an impact if elected. To the issues. Number one, the Treasury is responsible for all of the cash and investment management in the state, on the order of about a $40 billion asset portfolio that's managed. They do a reasonable job, not an outstanding job, of managing that portfolio. However, though private enterprise is involved today in the management of that portfolio and in the cash management, the key decisions are not being handled through private enterprise in a manner consistent with libertarian principles. Taxpayers are paying for a bureaucracy they do not need. Government employees make the key decisions. My position will be that these operations should be privatized to the maximum extent possible, with appropriate safeguards in place to ensure performance by private enterprise. Second, many of you may not know that the Treasury is responsible for managing the results of an asset known as the Common School Fund, which the Treasury is partially responsible for key decisions concerning through the permanent seat on the State Land Board that the Treasurer occupies. This fund is responsible for the Land Board is responsible for over 1 million acres of land across Oregon. The Treasury manages the results of the operation of that land. Being government-owned, these assets are poorly managed and environmentally at risk. I would use my position on the board to advocate privatization of these lands using the proceeds, which the Constitution requires, to fund a privately managed education capital fund. I would also work to alter the Constitution to remove the purely educational restriction on the use of those assets so they could be put to a broader range of productive purposes. Third, the elimination of extraneous activities. The Treasurer is currently involved, and I would expect any future Treasurer from the opposition to also be involved in a number of issues that have absolutely nothing to do with the responsibilities of the Treasury. Examples include a bill to create a budget stabilization fund managed by the Treasury, another proposal to use the tobacco settlement money to back a series of bond measures that would create further liabilities for all of us, backed by the tobacco settlement money, exclusively funding education and healthcare issues. The Treasurer made that submission to the legislature last year. And finally, the Oregon Savers Act, which is another government move to help all of us to save. All of these are misguided efforts that would have the effect of further encroaching on the liberty of all of us, to the benefit of no one but the Treasurer. As Treasurer, I would immediately cancel all such proposals and replace them with proposals that increase individual liberty and reduce the role of the Treasury in all of our lives. The bottom line is that I'm serious about this race. I'm the right candidate for the LPO, and I know you'll make the right choice. Thank you.
Welcome to Community Voice. First question I'd like to ask is, why are you running for state treasurer?
It's great to be here, Richard, and that's a very good question. I've been involved and interested in politics since I was a young lad of 17 in school. Since then, I've been pretty absorbed professionally in my day-to-day career. But recently, I found myself wanting to actually do something about the behavior of governments at every level, state, local, and national. And I've chosen this opportunity to get involved, to make a difference, and to apply my talents to the serious challenges that I see the Treasury facing within the state of Oregon today.
Given the perceptions out there, why should people vote to you as opposed to one of the major party candidates?
Why should they vote for me? Well, that's very simple. The opposition parties really stand for the same thing. And that same thing is to extract as much of your personal assets out of your pocket to put in the state government's treasury and spend on things that they will describe as helping you. I believe something profoundly different.
I think the role of government is basically to get out of the way, to put assets back in your pocket and put power back in the hands of the people to make their own decisions, which they can't do if they've been taxed, which they can't do if taxes have removed their ability and their freedom to operate independently. That's really what I stand for and the essential difference between Mitch Shults and any opposition.
Now, if you're elected, what is it that you plan to do as state treasurer?
Well, there's three basic things that I think the state treasury needs to improve on substantially. Number one, they're responsible for the $40 billion odd employee retirement system for the state of Oregon. They do a reasonable job of investing that money. However, the charter of PERS, as it's called, is one that is essentially unfair to the taxpayers of the state of Oregon. It has a basic policy that says you can invest as a retiree with your own decisions, but if you make the wrong decisions, then the taxpayers of the state of Oregon will cover you if you made a bad bet. That's not how any private pension program works, and that's unfair. I would work to change that ruling at the same time as operating the finances very well so that it is a fair system and one that benefits both the retirees and the taxpayers of Oregon. Number two, the treasurer is a member of a number of constitutional bodies that were chartered by the Oregon Constitution. One of those is the State Land Board. As a member of the State Land Board, the treasurer is part of the group that decides how to utilize the 800,000 acres of land that the state of Oregon owns. How much do you think the state of Oregon made on the publicly owned lands in Oregon last year?
I don't know.
1.5%. Total return on those assets.
It's not very good.
It's miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Any private enterprise that makes 1.5% on its money would be out of business over almost immediately.
That's not even keeping with inflation.
Exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So one of my charters, which would be in opposition to the other members of the land board, I have no doubt, would be to privatize those lands and put them in the hands of private ownership who actually care about effective utilization of it, care about maintaining those lands over time so that the environment is not destroyed. Government is the greatest destroyer of environment that exists in the world, and this is a perfect example of that. So I'd fix the State Land Board and the associated Common School Fund that takes the meager returns from state lands and invest them for school funding. Number three, I would eliminate much of the government bureaucracy that is associated with the Treasury acting as the state bank. There's plenty of perfectly good banks out there who know how to manage cash and execute transactions very effectively, who have huge infrastructures and professional staff, and they're lower cost than hiring government employees to run those operations. I would bid them out and ensure a competitive resource that reduces costs to the taxpayers and more efficiently manages government finances.
Are those the three issues you're going to campaign on, or are you going to use another set of issues or points during the campaign itself?
Well, I think those are the three basic issues that I would focus on. Frankly, I think that they're kind of arcane for most voters. Most voters aren't aware of those kinds of issues. So I think my overall theme would be that I represent the only alternative to continuation of the current government policies. Republican, Democrat, I don't care, they're the same. That incrementally reduce your freedom and your liberty as a voter to make your own decisions with your own money without government interference.
Now, we've talked a few times, and you're obviously going to run an aggressive campaign with the objective of winning. But what other goals are you going to pursue as you campaign?
Well, I think one of the winning is certainly a task for a party without the mechanics and the backing of the major national parties. But I think my main objective, in addition to hopefully winning, is to use the process of the campaign to educate the people of Oregon about the fact that there is an alternative, that things don't have to continue like they have been, that they don't have to live their lives with the boot of government on their neck. We stand for that alternative, and I stand for that alternative with respect to the Treasury's operation.
Now, what kind of a strategy are you going to use? In other words, how do you plan to campaign?
Well, the campaign plan right now, and it's still under development, it's early in the process, but the campaign plan right now is to start early in the year with a series of radio interviews around the state. Even though there's not a whole lot of voters around the state, there's enough to make a difference, and most of those voters are naturally aligned to the way of thinking that I represent. So I'll talk to the radio stations around the state. I'll run radio ads with the right kinds of stations to get the issues out and provide some education. And later in the year, we'll do some TV advertising, primarily on cable, to get the word out. In addition, there'll be a series of written communications and a very attractive website that voters can use and the press can use to get more detailed information about the issues.
Well, that's great, Mitch. Now up on the screen, we're going to put information as to how people can contact you or if they have questions or want any more information. Do you have anything you'd like to say about that, Mitch?
Well, you can reach the Mitch Shults for Treasurer campaign through 3 different mechanisms. You can dial the 800 number shown on the screen, you can send us a letter at the address shown, or you can come to the website, get the information directly, or send us an email at the address indicated.
Well, great. Thank you very much for joining us here on Community Voices.
You're very welcome.
I would like to nominate Beth King.
Beth King is the candidate for Congressional District
I do have a
1.
letter, even though she's not here to accept that there was an illness, I believe an emergency or a death in the family. She could not be here today. I do have an acceptance letter. I will read this for her speech later and when we get into that. When we get to that time. Let me read this prepared letter from Beth King. Dated yesterday, October 23rd. Dear fellow libertarians, I wish we could have been with you today. Unfortunately, we had an emergency arise and we had to leave town. Because of that, it is through this letter I must make my plea to you as to why you should nominate me to represent the Libertarian Party for Oregon's 1st Congressional District. First of all, I, like you, are a firm believer in the principles that this great country was founded on. Over time, however, our country has drifted from these great principles, and it's time we, as libertarians, do all we can to bring those principles back. They are just as great as today as they were back in the days of their conception. I saw a bumper sticker a while back that said, quote, "If you aren't angry, then you aren't paying attention," end quote. Well, I am paying attention, and I am angry, and I don't like where this great country is going. We have a government that is getting bigger and bigger with each passing year. We have a tax burden that is cutting more and more into our paychecks. And we have people who are wanting to take away our basic rights. Enough is enough. The way I see it, we have 2 choices. We can either bury our heads in the sand, like so many Americans are doing, or we can take a stand and make a difference. I've chosen to take a stand and make a difference. That is why I need your support, but much more than that, your nomination to represent the Libertarian Party in the run for Oregon's 1st Congressional District. My main issues will be 1, limiting the size and the power of government by taking the stand that more and more issues either need to be dealt with on a more local level or should not even be legislated at all, particularly moral issues. Number 2, taxation. I believe we need major tax reform on the federal level, moving towards either a flat tax or a consumption tax, whichever will prove to be a more equitable way of spreading out the tax burden. As it is now, the working middle class is being heavily taxed while many others pay very little tax and some go untaxed. Number 3, individual rights. I am an ardent supporter of the Second Amendment, and I will support our ability to bear arms. Guns are not the problem. The people who choose to abuse the guns are the problem. Let's start dealing with the root cause of this problem. Guns are not the root cause. Please help me do my duty as an American and as a libertarian by nominating me as your candidate for Oregon's 1st Congressional District. Thank you. In liberty, Beth A. King.
Bruce Knight is the candidate for Congressional District 3. He is
I'm a libertarian because I believe in personal liberty, responsibility, and limited constitutional government. I'm running for the U.S. House of Representatives because I don't see those values represented in Washington, D.C. Somebody has to go there and do it. I've been there, I don't like the place, but I'm willing to make a great personal sacrifice of spending a couple of years in Washington, D.C. as your representative. That's a long road, and admittedly, any libertarian running for a federal office is a dark horse. I knew that the first time I ran for office back in '96. I'd always preferred to work behind the scenes. This is my 6th term as secretary. I kind of like that. I had never agreed to run for office until there was a push to get a full congressional slate in 1996. And people came to me and said, well, we can't find anybody else, Bruce. And I said, no, if you can't find anybody else, I'll do it, but it'll just be a paper campaign. Okay, well, we'll see. So sure enough, I was unanimously nominated for the 3rd Congressional District. Well, I filed the papers, wrote up a voter's pamphlet statement, and decided, well, maybe I can do a little more than that. Started going to Rotary clubs and schools and leading women voters, and got myself invited to the local debates, which in the 3rd District they're pretty good about doing that with libertarians. Elsewhere, maybe not so much so. And I found out how much fun it was. And I found out that a lot of times I'd get more applause than anybody else in the room. And I'm thinking, hey, this isn't so hard. All I was doing was coming in, telling them not what I thought they wanted to hear, but the truth as I saw it. And people responded to that. And I came up with, I raised and spent about $1,500 in that first race, pulled about 2.5% of the vote. Came in the middle of the pack. But I had so much fun, I said, I'm going to do this again. So come '98, everybody knew, Bruce wants to do this again. Nobody else raised their head. And so I was again unanimously nominated. Well, I got more contributions, but they were in smaller amounts. So I raised and spent about the same amount of money in '98 as I did in '96. But I did a few things differently. For one thing, I did not go on the voter's pamphlet on the grounds that I didn't want to accept that subsidy, because the taxpayers foot the bill for 90% of that. What they charged the candidates is only about 10% of the actual cost. And that was a hard decision to make, but I said, well, we'll try it this way. Also, I found that I suddenly had a lot more campaign volunteers than I had in '96, and that was a great help. It really was. I wouldn't have got anywhere without them. And part of what those volunteers did was to produce a cable television show, a series that aired regularly every couple of weeks between July and October of '98, called Battle Cry of Freedom. Every episode, we would have candidates on, mainly libertarian candidates, discussing the issues that were on the table. And actually, the last episode before the election, we had a 3-way debate between all of the candidates for Oregon State House in Joe Tabor's district. Both of his opponents actually showed up and debated. And by the end of that show, we were taking call-ins from the live audience, and we were getting more calls than we could handle. So election day of '98 came around. Having spent only as much money as I did 2 years before, I not only got 4 times the vote total as I had 2 years before, but became the first libertarian in Oregon ever to finish second in a federal race. I'm going to need some of your money. I'm going to need your help. And talk to me. We're working on it. We've been planning this for a year now, and we need to get the ball rolling. So that said, nominate me, please. I want to do this one more time.
Kevin Shamloffel is running for House District 6.
Thank you. I'm more than happy to get the nomination here for the Libertarian Party. I do plan to run a very serious campaign out in Washington County. We actually already have everything kind of in operation. We almost have our flyers ready, kind of hoping that this would sort of help solidify it. Just to give you a real quick background, I had left the Republican Party about a year ago. I was planning to make a serious run on the Republican Party ticket. I've worked close with some of the legislators there over the years. I grew not only increasingly discouraged over the years with the way business was being conducted, but some of the main issues of bills that I had put forth, the way they got pushed down in the legislature, primarily dealing with issues that's most dear to me is court reform, judicial reform, legal reforms. And when I came up against some of the opposition, it was not only within the own party, in the Republican Party, as well as some Democrats, but it was certain special interest groups within the party that operated within the party that does a lot of lobbying and stuff on behalf of the attorneys that are there. And so I got some good ideas. I'd like to take some time in the future to be able to discuss some of these with you in more detail. I know the time isn't given here, but again, I would welcome you not only to be involved with our campaign if you ever get a chance, and I know there's going to be a lot of people asking for you to be involved in their campaign, and that's great. As long as you're active and aren't burying your head in the sand, that'll be good. But I hope to see you in November, you know, maybe when we go out there and all of us get a chance to try and win. So.
David Hintz is the candidate for House District 3.
Thank you. I was planning on saying a little bit more, but since I'm limited to only 2 minutes, I'll make it very quick. This race, all of our races here, deal with 2000. I don't know what 2000 will bring, but I do believe it'll bring change. Good change, bad change, I really don't know. But one change I would like to bring is to give the voters choices. Choices over what they're getting now, normally just a Democrat or Republican. I want to give them the choice to determine if that change is going to be good or bad. The voters have piles of choices in their life, from the type of cereal they have to the music they listen to, and in all those areas they have more choices than they're getting in the political arena. I want to, if I can be on the ballot and I can give them a fair choice for freedom, for responsibility, for the real American way, I want to do that for them. If I can win, if I can go to the State House, and if I can give them even greater choices in even more important parts of their life, like the education of their youth, the education of their children, to give them real choices instead of just the government telling them what they're going to get, then I can say, in 2000, there might be some bad things that happened, chance might bring a lot of weird things, but some of it was good. Thank you.
John Zimmer is the candidate for House District 10.
My name is John Zimmer. I ran for House District 10 2 years ago, or 1 year ago, I guess, at this point. House Speaker Lynn Snodgrass is the current state rep, and she is retiring due to term limits. I hope that this will allow me to term limits. Hopefully this will give me a chance to get a few more votes. This will be the 4th time I've run for state representative and the 2nd time in this district. And I hope we can do a lot of those same choices for everybody in the other districts as well as in David's district. And thank you.
Joe Tabor is the candidate for House District 12.
Greetings, fellow Libertarians. I've done this before. I ran in House District 12 in 1998. I'm looking forward to running it again. It's a great way to meet my neighbors. I'm going to do some things differently this time. Last time I relied a lot on mail-outs. I don't think they were very effective. This year will be more signs. This will be the kind of sign that you will find in front of people's houses. There will be a larger one that will go on the roads. These primarily went on roads. And I will be doing a lot more door-to-door. Door-to-door, I believe, is the most important thing for a candidate to be doing who's running for state representative. It's basically free. And I will be looking for money for signs and also for newspaper ads. And the newspaper ads will feature meetings with me and my constituents, hopefully future constituents, in various restaurants about once a week or so, probably on Monday night. And that way they'll have an opportunity to meet with me. And I did that in the past, and I did have a couple of takers who came to talk to me, which was kind of nice. And going door to door, I also expect to hand out some initiatives. And it's going to give people something to remember me by. There are various initiatives now that are very pro-libertarian. I would like to bring those with me door to door, and instead of just simply handing them a leaflet and then getting a thank you and then walking away and letting them throw it away or laugh at it or whatever, they'll have some time to talk to me, see what I'm about, and I will actually be doing, in a way, kind of the legislative process by handing them the initiatives and giving them the choice for liberty right at their door. And I'm really looking forward to this campaign. I'm going to try to not make it as taxing as it was for me, both in money and in effort, as it was the last time. I plan to work a normal working day, starting a little bit early, and I'm hoping by 3 or 4 o'clock on the long days, I'll be able to spend a lot of time in the afternoon going door to door, and I think I can get a lot of points that way and even possibly win. And I just want to say, I think I made a good investment in '98. I attacked urban growth boundaries when no one was brave enough to attack it. And now people are seeing these row houses and the pollution that are being caused by urban density, and I think I made a very valuable investment in 1998 by taking such a strong stand against it. So I'm your candidate for 2000 for District 12.
Joshua R. Polson is the candidate for House District 11.
In 1998, Joe Tabor and I ran back-to-back campaigns in the 11th and 12th District. We were covered by 4 local papers, including Willamette Week and Oregonian. Willamette Week misquoted both me and Joe. We love that. We also got double-digit percentages when the votes came in. I'm very proud of that. And also, I'm not going against an incumbent this time. Anita Rasmussen is also facing term limits. So most likely I'm going up against Martin Taylor, who is also chairman of Siege. That's who the Democrats are going to put out. This guy is so anti-freedom, it's not funny. He doesn't believe in free speech. He doesn't believe in owning property, practically. It's going to be kind of interesting to be on the left of somebody as opposed to on the right of somebody on this district. So even if the Republicans do run somebody, I'll probably be stealing votes from Martin and not from the Republican. It'll be interesting that way. So I'm not going to accept money from anyone. I'm going to self-finance this just like the last one. I don't see any reason to accept money for this. It's a small district. There's only 70,000 voters in it. Of them, only 33% of them vote. So as a result, it shouldn't be too hard to reach the ones that do. Thank you very much.
John McAvoy, candidate for House District 14.
Okay, guys, you saw me. I tried to weasel out of it. Couldn't happen. Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. You recorded this. Okay. Gettysburg Address. Few words. Undo bad legislation. Prevent bad new legislation. Go buy a new pair of shoes. That's it, guys.
Michael Wilson is the candidate for House District 15.
I've been involved in libertarian politics since 1976, and I lived in Houston, Texas. First voted for Roger McBride then. I had to write that vote in. And it did not count because at the time, they didn't count libertarian voters. Moved to Boise, Idaho in about late 1970s, and I ran for city council twice there, state legislature once in 1984, I believe it was. Got 18.5% of the vote at that time. It was a two-way race. We have never been able to outspend our opposition that I know of. I have not met a libertarian candidate that can. However, we can out-research them. Every single issue that we believe in is transportation, education, judicial system, drugs, occupational licensing laws. We can show where the present system does not work. We can show that these laws are often based and passed in this country for a particular agenda, and often that agenda has been hidden, but often it's been racism. Whether it's the drug laws, the gun laws, occupational licensing, zoning laws, building codes, the works, the history is there. All we need to do is dig it out and show it to the people. If we look at any number of issues from the point of economics, we can show that the people are better off when we open the markets and housing and transportation. You can get a better education through an open education system. It does not matter. We can out-research the opposition, and we can do a damn good job. Now let's go out there and do it.
Thank you for watching the premiere of Community Voices. We hope you enjoyed it. This show will be rebroadcast on January 13th at 9 p.m. on Channel 11 and January 19th at 10 p.m. on Channel 21. If you have any comments or ideas for future guests or any other thoughts, please call 503-604-2234 or email us at communityvoices@juno.com. Thank you very much.